Because at this point we were just lying down in a bed in a room and we were all exhausted. Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel, or welcome to our channel if you guys are new here. For today's video, as you guys can tell by the title and the thumbnail, I am going to be doing a little bit of a story time. I think this is our third story time of Skylar May getting sick and her second time going to emerg. So grab yourself a drink or a snack and buckle up. It's a doozy. So our story starts off on the Thursday after Easter long weekend. Thursday night, right before we went to bed, I noticed Skylar May felt really warm. I thought it was just maybe her clothes. She was wearing pants and a long sleeve. So I stripped her so she was just in a diaper and we went to bed. Friday morning, I woke up around 7 o'clock to start getting ready for work for the day. And I noticed that she was hot to the touch, like hot. And she had a fever of 101, which is a low fever, but still a fever. And I think in Celsius, that's 37 or 38. Shortly after that, Chris ended up getting up, going to work, and I brought Skylar May out into the living room. She ate a couple pieces of oranges, a couple bites of banana bread, and a couple gulps of water. So I thought, okay, at least she's getting something into her stomach. She's always been an eater, even if she doesn't feel that good. She just really did not look like she was feeling well. So I picked her up and then she projectile vomited all over me and herself. So I instantly stripped both of us down, put us in the shower, a cool shower, mind you. It did really help cool her down. She vomited once more after the shower. Thankfully, not on herself or me. I was able to catch her with a bowl this time. She was refusing to eat or drink anything for a majority of the day. I kept offering her food, and then in the evening, right before Chris got home from work, she did manage to eat about half of orange. I think she had some water, some yogurt, and some more of her banana bread. And she was able to hold this down. So we thought, okay, maybe it's just a fever because of her molars. Like, she's almost 3, which is crazy, but maybe those are popping through. We've had our suspicions with that a couple times, but no teeth have popped through those gums yet. So every time she does get a fever, we think maybe she's teething. I gave her some Advil for her fever and noticed we did not have very much left. I had maybe a dose left, probably not her full dose that she's supposed to get, and I was right, we didn't, but we'll get to that. So Chris got home from work and I asked him to go to the store. He got something, I don't even know what it's called, but it was a homeopathic, like ibuprofen medicine for fevers and colds. So we gave that to her. And by this point, I had rechecked her temperature and it was 102. So her fever was climbing. So I decided to give her the last of the Advil that we had, which was not her full dose. I was right with my suspicions and she did not get a full dose. So I didn't think it was going to do very much, but I still gave her it to her anyway. She only woke up once in the night to kind of fuss and cry for a couple seconds and then cuddle into me and fall back asleep. Her fever was still 102, and I think it was 102.5 or 0.3, so it was still climbing. I whipped into town because the first time Chris went to go get medicine, I think he just went to the Cumberland pharmacy. So I whipped into town and was able to find Advil and Tylenol for her at Walmart. Now, keep in mind, we have always used Advil for Skylar May. We've never given her Tylenol before this time around, her being sick, because I was talking to my sister and she said since her fever wasn't breaking, try to do the Advil and Tylenol like at the same time. So we started doing that and she was just getting fussier and fussier, did not want anything to drink, anything to eat. It was really hard to even give her medicine. We had to start doing it through a syringe in like the corner of her mouth because she would not take it. So we were fighting her to try to give her medicine, which is not a fun thing to do. So come Sunday morning, I woke up quite early and her fever remained. She still wasn't eating, still wasn't drinking, and wouldn't even take a few gulps or a couple bites here and there like she was the previous days. She wouldn't have anything at all. Like, we tried everything. When I had run into town to get her medicine, I got her favorite snacks, something that would be light and easy on her stomach or her throat, popsicles, jello. I got everything and anything that you could get for your sick kid to entice her, and she didn't want any of it. When we're at the point when we can't get fluids into our toddler is where we have to go to the doctor. We went to the walk-in at Walmart, but by this time it was probably around noon or 1 o'clock and they were full for the day, couldn't take us. We went to the other walk-in and they were closed. So our only other option, unfortunately, was to go to emerg. We were probably waiting in the waiting room for maybe an hour and a half before we got up to the desk. We're able to take her blood pressure, talk to the nurse, and then get put through into a room to see a doctor. Skylar May was just super lethargic, super tired, and when she wasn't sleeping, she was fussing. So it was a really rough time. The nurses came in, tried to offer her water, apple juice, popsicles, that she didn't want a damn freaking thing, and every time we tried, she just got more and more upset. The doctor came in. I do not remember the doctor's name. She was able to listen to her heart, her chest, her lungs. She said everything sounded good. She wasn't wheezing or anything like that, but she wasn't sneezing or coughing. She didn't have a runny nose. It was just the fever and the lack of appetite and the lethargy. The doctor said both of her ears looked good. She did manage to take a look in her throat and said that her tonsils actually looked quite red and sore and irritated. She diagnosed her with having a throat infection but didn't want to do antibiotics. She didn't actually even talk about antibiotics or bring it up. She just said it's probably just a throat infection or a sore throat. She wanted to put one of those little plastic baggies around her bits so that we could get a urine sample to try and rule out if she did have a UTI, but she didn't have any symptoms leading us towards that she had a UTI. So me and Chris really just didn't want to put her through anything else that she didn't have to go through. They wanted to give her a dose of Advil and a dose of Tylenol. They brought both of those in and we were able to get the Advil into her, but she regurged the Tylenol and did not want it at all. But I did manage to give her some of it. And now we're just waiting. I don't know if they wanted to wait to see if it would bring her fever down or what, but they didn't really communicate why we were waiting. So Chris eventually went out and said, hey, she's fallen back asleep. It is her nap time right now, and she usually naps for quite a few hours. So can we just take her home and let her sleep there, or is there something that we need to be staying here specifically for? Because at this point we were just lying down in a bed in a room and we were all exhausted. The doctor ended up coming in right before we left and just pretty much reiterated what the nurse said. She said keep trying to offer her fluids and stuff, do the Advil and the Tylenol together. She gave us a dose for each of the medications based off of her weight instead of the recommended dose on the bottle. We finally come home and I have never ever seen her this way, and I never ever want to see her this way again. She had fallen asleep in the truck on the way home. So I grabbed her from the truck and brought her into bed, but as soon as I went to go put her down, she woke up and she was crying, and she was crying really hard, but really quietly. So I lied down in bed with her for a little bit because that was the only way she was able to fall back asleep. Every time I moved to get out of bed or she moved, she would start doing the hard, quiet cry again. But the Advil and the Tylenol should have been well kicked in and taking away the pain that she was feeling. She was crying, I was crying. It was a huge mess, and I won't go into too much detail, but we were all really emotional in this house for the rest of that evening. Brought her out to the living room, and her eyes were open, but she was not awake whatsoever. It was she was having a night terror, but it was this weird Tylenol coma nightmare thing. I was okay, let's go outside. Maybe the cold air will soothe your throat. I'll turn on your bubble machine for you because you love that. I turned on her bubble machine and oh my god, you guys, I literally thought I just gave my toddler a freaking heart attack because I had never felt or seen her shake so hard from being so scared from something in my life. And mind you, She loves, absolutely loves her bubble machine. I instantly turned it off. She was crying even harder, brought her back inside, managed to calm her down, went back into the bedroom with her, lied down with her there until she fell back asleep. I was freaking out. I talked to my sister and she said that my nephew Griffin had really bad reactions from taking Tylenol when he was an infant as well. It was the exact same thing as she was describing to me as I was describing to her what was going on with Skylar May. She fell asleep after that for maybe an hour and a half. She didn't wake up fussing, so me and Chris went in there, grabbed her, brought her out, and she seemed to be doing a lot better. She was drinking water, she had a couple of snacks, she was standing up, coloring on the table, talking to her cartoons. She still had a fever, but she wasn't super hot. It had come down. But by this point, since remember, like I mentioned, we barely got some of the Tylenol into her, the Tylenol was out of her system and the Advil was still kicked in. So I was like, what the heck? Like maybe she just had a really bad reaction and then it clicked. Ever since I went to the store and got the Tylenol and we started giving her the Tylenol and Advil together, she got productively worse. Worse as in super fussy, having these night terror cry fits, and just did not want to be put down, was not happy, was absolutely miserable. And her tipping point was when we gave her the bigger dose at the hospital. Like she was obviously sick, tired, not feeling well, overwhelmed, like very overtired, but the Tylenol was just the freaking cherry on top of the cake. And that did not agree with her. It made her so freaking loopy, like scary loopy, you guys. So we were like, okay, all of that nonsense that just happened, we pretty much just blamed it on the Tylenol. We're like, even though it's not a definitive diagnosis, we're not ever giving her Tylenol again. Where if any doctor or nurse asks if she is allergic to something, we're going to say she reacts very poorly to acetaminophen, aka Tylenol, and request that she never ever under any circumstances gets that drug ever again. So at this point I felt okay to go to work the next day, which was for the Monday, as well as Chris, and my mom was okay to watch Skylar. You know, my mom was texting me, I was texting her. She said she was doing so good. She was coloring. She managed to have a chocolate milkshake and a banana muffin. So she was eating and drinking, getting fluids into her. And we're like, okay, great. She's on the mend. And then things took a turn for the worst. At this point, it was after lunch and I was right in the middle of doing x-rays at work, actually. If you guys don't know, I work with animals in a veterinary clinic. So that explains that. Side note. Anyways, back to the story. I felt my phone freaking out in my pocket, like just buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. So I pulled it out, looked at it, and I had like quite a few messages from my mom and my sister, which was enough to kind of, you know, make your chest feel tight. I read my mom's text and she said Skylar was not doing well. She was crying. My mom could not get her to calm down. She clearly seems to be in a lot of pain because of her throat, and it was really freaking my mom out. So I had to leave work early, rush to my mom's house. When I got there, she had calmed down. She was sleeping. So I just cuddled with her for a little bit. She woke up a couple times, fussed, cried for a few minutes. Even I was having trouble to calm her down, so I ended up going to the upstairs bathroom into the shower. Not going into the shower, but turning the shower all the way on hot for the steam and sitting in the bathroom with her until she calmed down, and it worked almost instantly. Put her in the truck and then came home. When we got home, she was extremely fussy, had no Tylenol in her system, so we really were baffled. Me and Chris both went into the bedroom with her, put a movie on, and as long as we kept her occupied with singing or talking or building her blocks, stickers, puzzles, cards, coloring, she was fairly happy. But as soon as we stopped and she had a moment to kind of sit there and, you know, nothing was going on and she wasn't distracted, she would start to get upset again. In the evening, at this point it was probably around 7, she perked up again. We came out to the living room. She was eating, she was drinking fluids, and she seemed to be doing okay. Her fever had broke at this point, but because of the recent events that happened earlier that day, there was just something not right, and at all costs, we did not want to go to emerg. So we decided to take her into the walk-in the next morning, or I did. Chris ended up going to work, but I was able to get the morning off of work and went into the walk-in with her first thing. There's a lineup like all the way outside. So we were probably there for like 45 minutes before we got in just to check in. And then the nurse at the desk let me know that we probably won't be able to get seen until about 1 o'clock. So I dropped Skylar May off at my sister's house and went to work. So I'm in the middle of monitoring anesthesia while my boss is doing a surgery on a dog, and I get a phone call. And it's the clinic saying, hey, we're ready to see like Skylar now. And it was only like 11:45, so I was like, oh my god, okay. Thankfully, one of my coworkers was able to switch me out so that I could leave. And I forgot to mention this. So when I had picked her up from my mom's house after she was not doing so well, I noticed that she had what looked like a heat rash on her cheeks. My mom thought it was just because of her sweater, because she was lying on her. But I noticed that later that evening, it was still there. And it was even all over her chest. Fast forward, we see the doctor, he checks her vitals, yada yada. At this point, she was sleeping on me. He checks her ears. She did okay with that because, like I said, she was sleeping. He was able to look in her mouth and her throat. She did cry for that part, but he said that her throat did not look red, did not look irritated whatsoever, and she did not have a throat infection. And then he saw the rash on her cheeks, and I said, yeah, that rash actually showed up last night. And as soon as he saw her rash, he diagnosed her with what is known as fifth disease, as in 5, which is also commonly known as slapped cheek. And that is in the same kind of family as like chickenpox, measles. Sometimes it can be itchy, sometimes not. Usually shows up in infants. They get it once, they'll never get it again. And oddly enough, it is passed through like saliva. So someone who shared a drink with her or was kissing her, and that said someone would have had to have come in contact with somebody who had chickenpox or measles, which really puzzled us. But at the same time, it was Easter the weekend before. We were around all the kids. We went to the fairgrounds. So there was, you know, endless possibility and germs, right? You have a toddler that's running around and touching things. Any kid could have licked, coughed, eaten something from their hand, touched something that Skylar May touched, and then she, you know, put her mouth in her hand. Lord knows. He said that the rash usually signifies that the 5th disease is on the mend. So he starts off with the sore throat. The sore throat can lead to the fever, lack of appetite, lethargy. As soon as the sore throat kind of mends itself and the fever breaks, they show up with this rash. So she is healing. The rash should only last a few more days and then she'll be absolutely fine. So that was super relieving to hear. He said that she didn't need antibiotics. She didn't need any more medicine anymore, so we didn't give her any more. And she's been completely fine ever since. But the more time that went on, the more me and Chris kind of thought about the whole experience that we had while we were in emerg, and the more frustrated we got with a lot of things that went on. It's just the way that they went about certain things, the whole lack of communication, the fact that the doctor diagnosed her with an infection but didn't want to talk about or bring up or even offer us a prescription for antibiotics, and only wanted to test her for a UTI in which she didn't have any symptoms minus the fever for. So me and Chris agreed that we will literally never take her into emergency again so long as we have a choice. And we will also never give her a Tylenol ever again because she reacts to it very poorly. And I would not wish that upon literally anybody, not even my worst enemy. We are so happy that she is feeling better. It just sucks being a parent when you have a sick kid, but nonetheless, her rash is completely gone. That kind of concludes the whole very, very chaotic experience and story time of our emergency visit with our toddler, and that was our second one. If you've had any bad experience in emerg or a good experience, share them in the comments below. I want to hear them. I want to hear your stories. Thank you guys so much for clicking on this video and watching this story time and letting me tell you about our experience in emerg with our little girl. We are very thankful that she's feeling better and we've been able to get back into the vlogs again. Make sure you guys subscribe down below so you don't miss any upcoming content. But until then, we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.